Morning, Red.
All right, we'll get underway first with the sponsors. Okay. A Year of Learning by Sue and Arnie Garelick in memory of Malka Pearl Mann and Philip Mann, and in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Shel Shur, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of the ERS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva. Marsha Federbush and family. In memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon. Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends. In memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbas Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, and Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Friends of Avi Gitler, Avrameir ben Shimon, and Martha Gitler, Charna bas Yeshaya. Friends of Toby Paris, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov. Friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi. We have a month of learning by Haran and Mel Haller, in memory of her father, Yosef Eliezer ben Tzvi Hirsch, by B. Pizer, in memory of her father, Yisachar Dov ben Shmuel, by Mordechai and Miriam Burr, in memory of his mother, Manya bas Harav Shimon Halevi, and by Stanley Presser, in memory of his wife, Chayalea bat Ze'ev HaKohen. We have a week of learning by Bonnie Gelb Jackson, in memory of her father, Mordechai Yoel ben Binyamin. Then today is the 27th of April. We do not have any days of learning today. So we finish, may Neshamas have an Aliyah, Krank Rafir Gat Yashir Shem Matzliah, and L'chol B'nai Yisrael, a good Gaben Shtiar.
Amen.
Good.
Okay. All right. If you have access to the page that the Art Scroll, if that's what you're using, has the diagram of the Beis Hamikdash, okay, that it would be helpful. Okay, so either put a paper clip there or something there, because that is an important aspect of today's learning. Okay. Now, we're on Tet Zayin Amud Aleph, and we were discussing the fact that there seemed to be a machloket, remember, between the two different texts, one here in Yoma, one elsewhere, I believe in Tamid, where it was talking about these 4 locations off the large area, okay? 4 chambers. They were considered, in a sense, chambers, small rooms, no ceiling on the top, okay? But they were considered separate areas. And we saw that with the 2 different positions, there was some commonality. Namely, one was clearly a place for the Lechem Hapanim being built. Another was a place where they said it was the Metzoraim, okay? However, there was a difference of opinion as to two of the other locations. So as we pick up with the Gemara, that's where we are going to see. So right now we are 5 lines down. Sorry, 5 lines on Tet Zayin Amud Aleph. Okay. Now, Amar Rav Huna. So Rav Huna asks the question, Man Tana Midot? Who is it that taught the Gemara of Midot? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Sorry, Ditnan, as taught, as Rat Nashim Haita Orech Me'a Ushloshim V'chamesh. The length of the Ezras Nashim was 135 cubits. Al Rochav Me'a Ushloshim V'chamesh, by a width of 135 cubits. Va'arba lishkot hayu va'arba miktsua, and there were 4 chambers in their 4 corners. Mahayu mishamshot, and what were they used for? Right. So we're going to see that according to Midot, this Braita tells us the following. Dromit Mizrachit, in the southeast corner, Haitalish Kat Nazirim, there was the chamber of the Nazarites. Shesham Nazirim Mevashlim et Shlomehem, that that's where the Nazarites cooked their offerings, okay, their peace offerings, umegalchim sa'aran, and they shave their hair, umeshalchim tachat hadud, and that's where they throw the hair then underneath the pot. Okay. Next location, Mizrachit Tzfonit, the northeastern corner, Hi Haita Lishkat Dir Ha'etzim. That was the chamber for the wood pile. We explained that that was wood that would be used either on the maracha, on the top of the large mizbeach, okay, was one example. Shesham kohanim ba'alei mumin omdin umatli'in ba'etzim. That's where any kohen who had a psul, who had a mum and therefore could not serve in the avoda, nevertheless stood and they removed the worms from any of the wood because it was not considered kavod, honorific enough to use wood with worms on the mizbeach. That was one explanation. The other was that since the worms could be considered non-kosher an item, if it were to get mixed up with any meat that was cooked on the mizbeach, okay, that would be a problem for the Kohanim to eat it. So both of those explanations seem valid. Shekol eitz sheyesh bo tolat, that any piece of wood that had a worm in it, pasul legabe mizbeach, was therefore invalid for the large mizbeach. Next location, Mar Tzfonit Ma'aravit, that it was northwest. Hi Haita Lishkat HaMitzoraim. This was the chamber of the Mitzorah. Okay. Notice, by the way, that whereas these other previous ones had details describing what was conducted there, this one does not. Then to the 4th location, Maravit Dromit. Okay, here we're talking about southwestern corner. Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Shachachti Mahaita Meshameshet. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, he had a, so to speak, a Century Village moment, okay, where he forgot what it was used for. However, Abba Shaul responds, Omer ba hayu notnin yayin v'shemen, that was a storehouse for the wine and the oil. V'hi'ayta nikret lishkat beit Shemnaya, and that was called the cell, the chamber of oils. Okay. Now, Gemara says, Hachanami, here too, Mistabra, it seems logical. The Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, he ditnan. That it was Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. We say that he was the editor, let's say for the moment, of Gemara Midot, that here too, he could have been the one that wrote as well. Okay? Kol haktalim shahayu sham, all of the walls that were surrounding the city of Jerusalem, hayu gvoim, they were high, chutz mikotel mizrachi, with the exception of the eastern wall, shekohen hasoref et hapara, that the kohen who was designated to burn the para aduma, which remember was done on Mount of Olives, okay, and therefore, but had to face the Mizbeach, had to face the Mishkan, okay, the Beis HaMikdash. What happens? Omei Bahar HaMishcha, that he stood on the Mount of Olives. Umechavein v'ro'eh keneged pitcho shel hechal, and he had to stand looking, facing the entrance of the hechal, of the Beis HaMikdash. B'sha'ah hazot haza'at hadam, at the time that he was sprinkling the blood. Utnan, and therefore we have another Mishnah that teaches, Kol haptachim shahayu sham gvohim esrim amma v'rochvan eser amot, that all the openings in the walls that were there at a height of 20 amma and of a width of 10 amma. Utnan, but it was also taught in a Mishnah, Lefnim mimenu soreg, and inside of that was the soreg, which we're going to call for the moment the lattice gate, Utnan, and also a Mishnah says, Ulefnim mimenu, and inside of that, Hachel, which was the rampart, Aser amot, that was 10 amos, Ushtaim esrei ma'alot, and there were 12 steps, Hayusham. Okay, so now that's telling us what the inside area of the entrance to the Hechal. Okay, so if we were to approximate on a map, okay, we would be talking about an area, these 12 steps, okay, leading up to the entrance to the Hechal. They were between the Mizbeach and the entrance to the Hechal, or to the entrance to the Ulam. Okay, right. Now, furthermore, as regards these steps, okay, the Gemara tells us, right? Rom mala chatzi amma. The height of each step was half an amma. V'shilcha, I'm going to say that's the width of the step, okay, chatzi amma, was also half an amma. So if we say that an amma is approximately from the tip of one's finger till the elbow, which is about 1.5 feet, okay, so that's 18 inches, okay, so it tells us about 9 inches. Then Gemara continues. Tedvav ma'alot. okay, that there were then, okay, a certain number of steps, right? 15, right? Steps. Olot mitocha hayordot me'ezrat Yisrael le'ezrat nashim. Okay? That went from the, let's say, courtyard of the Israelites down to the courtyard of the women. Rom Mala, the height of each step, Chatzi Amma, was half an Amma, Vishilcha Chatzi Amma, and the width was half an Amma. Utnan, and then a Mishnah teaches, Bein Ha'ulam La Mizbeach, between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, Kaf Bet Amma, there were 22 Amma. Ushtem Esrei Ma'alot Hayusham, and there were 12 steps there. Rom Ma'aleh Chatzi Amma, the height of each step was half an Amma, V'shilcha Chatzi Amma, and its width was half an Amma. Utnan, and then again, the Mishnah says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Omer, Ma'aleh Haitasham, that there was one step there, V'gavoa Amma, and its height was a full Amma, V'duchan Natun Aleha, and there was a, I'm going to say duchan as a platform, okay, or a stand that was on top of it. Ubo shalosh ma'alot shel chatzi chatzi amma, and this stand, okay, right, had 3 steps on it, each step being half an amma. Now the Gemara continues from there. Okay? By the way, again, if you have, depending on what map you're using, okay, the steps, okay, that we were referring to were the 15 steps leading from the women's court to the Israelite court. Those were the steps that led up to the Nicanor gate, okay, right, which was the separation between the women's courtyard, okay, and then the entrance to the, I'll say, the temple precinct proper, okay? All right. Now, picking up on the Gemara now once more. Iyamart b'shlema, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, if you're going to agree and indicate that later statement, spelling out all these details of locations and steps and things like that, belong to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Hainu, the ichse le pitcha, that all of this would have concealed the doorway to the ulam, to the entrance of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay. Ela iyamart rabbananha, but if you're going to say that this long discussion belongs to the rabbis, okay, ika palga da amta the mitchaze le pitcha begove. There is at least, then says the Gemara, a half an amma that should be visible, okay, through the doorway inside to see the entrance of the ulam, of the Beis HaMikdash. Elelav shmamina, but then, don't we learn from this, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? But that's why it must be from Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who said earlier that eastern wall had to be lower. Okay. Now, Rav Adabar Ahava wants to add Hamani, according to whom? Rabbi Yehuda. It's according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. who said as follows, the Tanya is taught in a Braita, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, HaMizbeach Mimutza, V'omeid Be'emtza Azara, that the, let's say, large altar, Mizbach for the offerings, was in the middle of this area, and it was opposite, okay? The, right? The middle of the Azara, okay? And Ushloshim Ushtaim Amot Hayulo, and it was, right, 32 cubits. Now, problem here, okay, is as follows. If then the Mizbeach was in the middle, how would it have been possible then for the Kohen burning the Para Aduma to see the entranceway to the Ulam, to the Beis HaMikdash? Okay. So continuing the measures then, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the Mizbeach Mimutze, okay, in the center, and it V'omeid Be'emtza Ha'azara, right? That was 33 amot, okay? Eser amot as we go over to the next amot. Keneged pitcho shel hechal, namely 10 cubits opposite the door of the hechal. Yud Aleph, 11 amah, l'tzafon, 11 cubits to the north. Yud Aleph amah, 11 cubits l'darom, to the south. Nimtza mizbeach mechuvan keneged hechal v'kotlav. And thus the altar was lined up, okay, opposite the hechal and its walls. Okay? So the Gemara now picks up on this. V'isal geda'ata, and if you want to consider and saying as follows, midot Rabbi Yehuda, that the whole discussion that we just had in midot was the view of Rabbi Yehuda, mizbeach be'emtza azara, that the large altar for offerings was in the middle of this, let's say, courtyard area. Is that possible? V'hatnan. But aren't we taught elsewhere, now in a different Braita, the following. Kol ha'azara hayta orech me'a u'shmonim v'sheva. Al rochav me'a u'shloshim v'chamesh, that the entire area here of this azara, this courtyard, was a length of 185 cubits with a width of 135. Min hamizrach, the ma'arav, okay, from the east to the west, me'a u'shmonim v'sheva, okay, was 187. Makom Drisat Raglei Yisrael, the area where it was possible for Israelites to walk, Yud Aleph Amah, that was 11 Amah. Makom Drisat Raglei HaKohanim, Yud Aleph Amah, that the place, the area for Kohanim to walk was 11 Amah. Mizbeach, the altar itself, Shloshim Ushtayim, that was 32. Bein ha'ulam, ulam mizbeach, between the entrance of the ulam and the large altar, okay, Esrim Ushtayim, it was 22. V'ha'hechal, and the hechal itself, the entire hechal, Mea Amah, that was 100 Amah. V'yud Aleph Amah, Achorei Beit HaKipporet, and that there was 11 Amah after the Beit Kippurit, okay, after the, not sure how best to, behind, let's say, the, if we want to call it mercy seat, my map would call it behind the, let's say, Kodesh Kadoshim, right? Okay. So what we have here now, Min Hadarom L'Tzafon, from the south to the north, Me'a'u Shloshim V'chamesh was 135. Hakeves, the ramp going up onto the Mazbeach, V'hamizbeach, Shishim V'shtayim, that was 62. Min hamizbeach uletabaot, from the where the altar was to the rings. The rings, remember, where they would tie up the animals, okay, before slaughter. Shmona amot. Okay, the map, okay, that I have. All right. There's the area of, there's the Mizbeach, there's the rings, right? Those were the slaughtering rings, okay? Just above those, okay? Makom Hatabaot, Esrim Va'arba was 24 amos. Min Hatabaot L'Shulchanot, Arba. From those rings to the tables was 4. Min HaShulchanot L'Nenasim, Arba. And from the tables, a gap again to the Nenasim, were the pillars or the columns. That's where the animals were hung for flaying, Arba. Min HaNenasim L'Kotel, Azara Shmona Amot. And from those pillars or columns to the wall was 8 amot. So again, in the diagram that I have, here's the shulchan, there are the pillars, and then some space as well. Okay? You may have better diagrams there. Okay? Vahamotar bein hakeves l'kotel. And if we look at the other end now, okay, from the keves, right, to the wall, from the ramp back to the wall, umakom haninasim, okay, from there all the way to the pillars, right, that was what was left. V'isalka da'atach, and if you're going to think, says the Gemara again, right, midot Rabbi Yehudahi, that whole discussion, okay, was based on the perspective and view of Rabbi Yehuda. Mizbeach be'emtza azara mi mishkachat. Do we really then think it's possible that the large Mizbeach was in the middle of the area? Haruba de Mizbeach b'darom kai. But rather the majority of the Mizbeach was in the south. Okay, so again, in this diagram, we can see that it was in the southern part, and the only part that was lined up with the doorway of the ulam was one side of the Mizbeach. Okay, we'll just go over a little bit, all right? All right. Ella lav shmamina, but rather don't we learn from this? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov he shmamina. Okay? That therefore that whole discussion of midot must have been based on the view and authority of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Indeed, that's the reference. Okay, so we're going to stop there for today. Okay. And we can see that the discussion of the 4 chambers that we had earlier, namely 1 for lechem apanim, 1 for wood, 1 for lambs, and 1 for
wine and oil.
Okay, or oil. Okay, or we saw there was an alternative, that it was earth, right? And that hearth was used to light the larger hearth in the middle of the, okay? We see we have not come to a final conclusion on that issue. Okay, so we need to assume that the Gemara is going to pick up on that topic, okay, and try to give us some clarification. So that's where we'll pick up tomorrow, everybody. Okay. All right, so everyone stay well. And
Thank you, you too. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
For one and all.
Bye.